Ammon, thank you very much for joining us.
Sure.
Great to have you on the show. And I'd love to learn more about how you do growth. You've worked in a number of B2B companies, and I'd love to get your insights.
I've been in the growth world since before it was called growth, back when it was called marketing. I was at Google in 2004. I've been an early employee at a couple of different startups, as well as a couple of small startups of my own. Most recently, I was at Frame.io, which is a video collaboration platform, and I'm currently the VP of Growth at X.ai, which is a meeting scheduling platform.
Can you tell us a little bit about X.ai since it's the most current one?
Sure. X.ai schedules meetings. It's pretty simple. That's all we do, and we do it very well. It's a company that differentiates itself based on the AI that we use. So rather than just allowing your guests to schedule a meeting, we have an AI that you can CC on an email midway through an email thread. And the AI will pick it up from there and reach out to your guests and find a time with them based on your calendar, your preferences, your availability, and then put it on your calendar. And so all you need to do is send that one email and it happens. And so we tend to get a lot of traction with very busy professionals who tend to schedule a fair number of meetings because they engage in this email ping pong game where they say, well, how's Thursday at 2? No? Okay, let me check. Friday at 4? Nope, okay. And so our AI handles all that back and forth. It handles all of the calendaring and just lets them go about their day without having to waste time going back and forth.
Actually, I think you used it. Did you use her?
I did use it with you, okay. Yeah. You reached out and said, hey, let's schedule an interview. I said, sure, great. And I CC'd Amy, our AI, and then probably a half hour later, I looked and it was on my calendar. I said, great, okay, that's when we're doing it.
And do you sell that directly, primarily to consumers or to companies?
More to professionals. So we refer to it as busy professionals and tiny teams. That tends to be where we have the most success. We've experimented with selling into the enterprise in the past through sort of a inbound lead, outbound marketing, and a sales team. And adoption was a bit of an issue. But what we found is that when one individual within an organization really likes it, it spreads to their team. And then from there, it can spread further and further. And so we're more of a product-led growth at this point. So I would call it more B2P, business to professional, but it's certainly a workplace utility. It's rarely used in one's personal life. So B2B fits as well.
That's interesting. The B2P aspect I hadn't heard of, but it makes sense, and maybe it makes sense for many B2B companies who don't get traction easily.
Yeah.
The adoption that you mentioned is a big issue.
Yeah, it's similar to the Slack model. Slack wasn't doing top-down selling. They weren't calling up the CEO and saying, hey, buy this, please. They were getting traction with small teams within organizations and then just growing from there. And so we're pursuing a similar model.
And when you say product-led growth, how do you engineer that?
We're fortunate that we have a built-in growth loop. Insofar as if I invite you to a meeting, as I did, you're now exposed to the product. And so I have an opportunity to introduce you to it. And if I do a good job, then you might sign up as well. Which, incidentally, if you're signed up for the product and I'm signed up for the product, there's no need for that back and forth. If I send you a meeting request, it's on both of our calendars immediately because the AI already knows your availability and your preferences. But that built-in virality, for lack of a better word, is really the fundamental purpose of the platform is to send it to other people, to the uninitiated. And so we're fortunate that the more meetings that get scheduled, the more people get introduced to the product. And if we can do a very good job, like I said, then they'll find it useful and they'll sign up as well.
And as VP of Growth for a product-led company, do you focus more on the product experience or communication? What is the bigger part of the role?
Currently, we're focusing more on the communication, more on making sure that people understand the value and the differentiation of our offering. There's a lot of places you can go to get a link that you can send out to people, but we really differentiate ourselves, like I said, based on that AI. And so getting people to adopt that, getting people to adopt the habit of using meeting scheduling that way and getting used to the fact that you can just do it quickly. That's one of our bigger challenges right now. And so product-led growth, it really is about optimizing those loops. So focusing not just on the communication, but then obviously on that user experience so you can get them in the door initially. So the guest experience has become a very big focus of ours because the happier your guests are as a customer of ours, the happier you're going to be. The happier your guests are going to be, the more likely they are to sign up. And then from that point, we can educate them about how to use the platform and the benefits thereof.
And in terms of campaigns or growth initiatives, let's say for 2020, do you have slated, I have these 10 initiatives, and if you can share any of them?
We want to roll out more content. There's a fair bit of content that we already have on our blog, X.ai/blog. So we have a lot of that. We're well engaged with our social media following. Our CEO, Dennis, has a substantial social media following. This isn't his first rodeo. And so again, we're fortunate there. We always have, I refer to it as just kind of a baseline of paid media. So there's always Google Ads running. We'll sometimes run some small Facebook campaigns, some small LinkedIn campaigns, but for the most part, that's really just to prime the pump and get entirely new users in and then allow them to just naturally activate, start scheduling meetings. And then it's a lot of product management and loop optimization. So making sure that, after a guest schedules a meeting, we say, hey, wasn't that cool? Perhaps you'd like to schedule a meeting as well. We ask everyone to rate their experience 1 to 5 stars, and anyone that rates it 5 stars, we're going to put in a different retargeting group, and we're going to be a little bit more aggressive about going after them on the Googles and Facebooks and ad platforms.
Okay. And you mentioned content, social, and ads, so maybe we can dig a little deeper on each of them.
Sure. Yeah.
On the content side, what do you do or what have you seen works better?
We're finding that content that speaks directly to a use case tends to be better. We just published an article recently talking about, here's a technology stack that recruiters use. And it was a guest written by Mike Batman Cohen, who is an expert and does a lot of speaking engagements in the recruiting space. And so when we talk about X.ai as one component of this whole technology stack, the personal technology stack that a recruiter uses, then that niche really picks it up on social and it got shared around quite a bit. When you do an article like, here's the technology stack for a recruiter, you're also including a bunch of other companies. And so we're pinging them on social and saying, hey, we just mentioned you in our article. Do you want us to add anything or should we make sure it's accurate? And they tend to amplify the message from there. And so if you really get into a niche, in a use case that makes sense for someone, then you can sort of propagate it naturally without having to really boost your posts or really push your content as hard as you would otherwise.
And if you look at the higher level growth marketing, where do you see it going, especially on the B2B side? What seems to be working, gaining more traction, or where is it evolving?
I see a lot of the same email drips going out. So I don't know if, I think that that's going to run its course a little bit. I think that events in person, especially when you're B2B at a higher level at an enterprise, but thought leadership and content has become more and more important. You look at the HubSpot model, if you will. They publish just gobs and gobs of content. They're always getting SEO. But when you talk about matters related to what HubSpot does, HubSpot comes to mind. And so when it's done well, you can really disseminate content and become sort of the voice for your industry. And I think that that's more effective from a poll standpoint than it is to send a whole bunch of cold emails and put clever subject lines and all these sort of cold drip campaigns. I think that those run their course. And maybe I've created those campaigns in the past, and so I recognize them right away. Maybe I'm way off on that, I don't know.
Thank you so much for sharing, I appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks a lot for the advice and for the insights.
Yeah, happy to share. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.